Mom erased me from Thanksgiving like cutting a face from a family portrait, and for a moment, I forgot how to breathe. I wasn't absent. I was deliberately deleted. They posted their smiling table online. Every chair filled except mine, and the comments poured in. Such a perfect family. But no one saw the cropped edges, the silence I was forced into. When I opened my grandmother's old cedar chest, I found something that shouldn't exist, proof of betrayal carved in her handwriting. And in that instant, I knew. By sundown, their story would collapse, and mine would finally begin. The world knew the Hayes family as picture perfect. Our TikTok feed overflowed with polished clips, golden turkeys steaming on silver trays, sparkling cranberry glasses raised in laughter, my mother's manicured hand resting proudly on my brother Kyle's shoulder. The comments read like a hymn book, "Family goals. Wish I had parents like yours. The happiest house on the internet." And yet, if you slowed one video down, froze the frame at the right second, you would see me, just a blur, a half shadow in the corner mirror, carrying another dish, unacknowledged, unwanted. The joke was that I lived in reflections. The truth was, my family never wanted me in the picture at all. I used to ask myself if maybe I wasn't photogenic, if maybe they were right to leave me out. "You look tired, Clara," Mom would say, waving me away whenever the ring light came on. "Don't worry, sweetheart. Not everyone is made for the spotlight." And then Kyle would sweep in, flashing his politician's grin, lifting his wine glass as though he had been born to pose. The camera loved him. Mom loved him more. And I, pressed against the kitchen wall, polished the silverware no one saw. But the audience noticed. They always do. The latest post went viral. Thanksgiving family goals. With 2 million views in 24 hours. There was Kyle at the head of the table, carving turkey with all the practiced charm of a campaign ad. Mom leaned close, dabbing his chin with a napkin. Behind them, the fireplace roared, stockings perfectly matched, candles flickering like obedient soldiers. The caption read, "Tradition keeps us together." Except, if you looked closely, there was an empty chair, second from the left. The comments started trickling in. "Wait, isn't someone missing?" one wrote. "Didn't this family have a daughter?" asked another. The words multiplied, little fractures across the glass screen. And yet, when I confronted Mom about it, she only sighed, her eyes wide with that performance polish she used whenever the mask slipped. "Clara, you imagine things. No one is erasing you. You just never look comfortable on camera." She tilted her head like pity was a gift. "You should be grateful we protect you from embarrassment." Protect me. That word burned hotter than the oven. Because the truth was, I'd been protected out of existence. Later that night, alone in my apartment, I scrolled through my phone, unable to stop myself from searching. I typed Hayes Family Thanksgiving into TikTok and was assaulted by their faces, their voices. And then something worse, a screenshot of a group chat. Not one I belonged to, not one I'd even heard of. The header photo was Kyle and Mom clinking champagne glasses. The members list included every cousin, every aunt, every sibling, except me. Date created 3 years ago. My throat closed. 3 years. 3 years of jokes, plans, conversations, and I had been invisible to them all along. My fingers trembled as I scrolled. At first, the messages were mundane. Arranging dinner times, choosing outfits for videos, debating hashtags. Then came the laughter. "Don't let Clara see this, she'll think we're excluding her again." Followed by strings of emojis, little knives dressed as balloons. And then I saw it. A photo of me, slumped over the couch last Christmas, asleep after 12 hours in the kitchen. Kyle had taken it. Beneath, the caption read, "No one needs her anyway." 23 laughing reactions. My pulse beat like a drum against my skull. I wanted to throw the phone across the room, but I couldn't look away. My family had mocked me not behind my back, but to each other, preserving the memory in pixels, laughing every time it surfaced. For a long moment, I sat in silence, staring at that frozen image of myself, mouth slightly open, hair falling across my face, a caricature of exhaustion. They had weaponized even my sleep, my one vulnerable refuge. I shut off the phone, but the words glowed against the inside of my eyelids. No one needs her anyway. And yet, as the night pressed in, another thought grew, sharp and dangerous. What if they were right? What if I truly vanished, slipped off the map, deleted myself as cleanly as they had deleted me? Would anyone notice? Would they pause their dinner, stop their camera, break their laughter? Or would they simply crop the frame tighter, smile wider, and carry on as though I never existed? The question carved itself into me like glass. And then, unbidden, another followed. If my absence doesn't matter, what would my presence, my real presence, undeniable and unedited, do to their perfect little stage? The fallout from that Thanksgiving video didn't stop. My family doubled down, producing more polished clips, brighter smiles, grander dinners. They didn't acknowledge the missing seat at the table. Instead, they filled the gap with narratives that I was busy, independent, too selfish to show up. The comments began to turn. Some kids don't deserve their families. She should be grateful. And then came the knife wrapped in silk. Imagine leaving your sweet mom and brother behind like that. Heartless. I knew I hadn't said a word, hadn't posted a thing, and yet the story was running ahead of me, dragging my name through the mud. It was as though my absence wasn't an accident but a campaign. And then the campaign grew teeth. An anonymous account appeared on TikTok under the name Truth From Inside. At first, it posted vague comments, stitched my family's videos with cryptic text overlays. Not everyone is invited. One child is missing. But soon, it turned vicious. Posts claimed I had stolen money from my parents, that I refused to care for my grandmother when she was dying, that I had chosen strangers over blood. The worst part wasn't the lies. It was the details. They mentioned dates, places, arguments only a family member could know. I sat at my kitchen table, scrolling through the bile, my heart hammering. The account had less than 1,000 followers, but the posts spread like mold, infecting every comment thread under my family's content. Some people defended me, most did not, and all I could think was, someone inside was feeding this fire. At 3 a.m, a message pinged in my inbox from a brand new account with no profile picture. The words were sharp, concise. They're going to take everything. Do you want to know the truth? I stared at it until the sun bled into the blinds. By the end of the week, the narrative solidified. Kyle announced in a new video that not everyone values tradition, his hand over Mom's as she dabbed her eyes on cue. We tried to include Clara, but she has her own priorities. We can't let one person ruin what the rest of us cherish. And then, the blow that nearly knocked me out of breath. A forwarded email arrived in my inbox from an aunt who still felt pity for me. Subject line, regarding property sale. It was from Kyle, sent to a lawyer with every cousin, uncle, and relative copied in. In it, he accused me of deliberately stalling the sale of our grandparents' house, of manipulating documents to block the process. He ended with a flourish. It's always Clara. She doesn't want this family to move forward. I read the words over and over, bile rising in my throat. They had turned me into the villain of their story, the scapegoat blamed for every delay, every conflict. And now, the entire family tree was invited to join in the spectacle. I tried to call Kyle, but he didn't answer. Mom sent a single text. Clara, you're making things harder for everyone. Please stop. Stop what? Existing? Breathing? Standing in the way of their perfect narrative? The anonymous account grew bolder. Screenshots of private conversations, ones I vaguely remembered, twisted, edited, were posted with captions like, "See? She never cared." I dug deeper and deeper until one night I froze. One of the screenshots had metadata still attached. Whoever posted it had taken it on Kyle's phone. My hands shook as I pieced it together. The lies, the details, the precision. It had been him all along. My brother, The golden child, the favorite, the star of every video. He wasn't just basking in the spotlight. He was fueling the darkness too. But proof wasn't enough. Metadata could be dismissed. Screenshots could be faked. I needed something undeniable. I almost confronted him anyway. Rage boiled inside me, so hot it nearly drove me to dial his number and scream until my throat ripped raw. But before I could, another message lit my phone, this time from Kyle himself. It was only one sentence, but it landed like a blade to the chest. "If you open your mouth, I'll make sure the world knows your secret." I stared at the words, the silence around me collapsing into a suffocating roar. He wasn't just trying to erase me anymore. He was threatening me, dangling some hidden truth I didn't even know he had. My heart thundered as the realization sank in. He wasn't afraid of exposure. He was ready to scorch the earth if it meant keeping me silent. And suddenly, I wasn't sure what terrified me more, the lies he'd already spread, or the truth he might be holding in his hand, waiting to detonate. The betrayal arrived in an envelope I wasn't supposed to see. A notarized document smuggled to me by the same aunt who had once slipped me the family emails, trembling as she handed it over. I opened it at my kitchen table, the ink still wet, my breath catching as I read the words. Mom had signed over everything, the house, the land, the savings accounts, to Kyle. Not in secret wills or whispers, but officially, legally, with the flourish of her perfect signature. It wasn't just property. It was betrayal etched in pen strokes, a declaration that I wasn't just unwanted in their videos. I was unwanted in their lives, their future, their legacy. The next morning, the internet knew before I did. A video went viral. Family signing day. Mom in pearls, Kyle in a pressed suit, the lawyer smiling as they clinked champagne glasses. My mother beamed at the camera. "We're preserving tradition for the next generation." The comment section erupted in admiration. And there, in the background, a framed photo of our family, with me cropped out. Again, I couldn't breathe. Not when the laughter in the video played on a loop in my head. Not when strangers online congratulated them for their unity. My own relatives liked and shared it, as though my erasure was worth celebrating. But then, while doom-scrolling through the comments, I stumbled on something worse. An old press release from a brand I vaguely remembered. It confirmed a rumor I hadn't dared believe. Mom had been paid to feature our family as ambassadors of American wholesomeness. The brand had required a clean aesthetic, symmetry, uniformity, perfection. And so, she had made her choice. I was the asymmetry. I was the imperfection. And she had cut me out like a smudge on a white wall. The fury rose inside me, hot and acidic, but it tangled with something colder, heavier, despair. My life had been reduced to absence, my worth measured in how easily I could be erased. I went to the barn that night, the only place that still smelled like childhood. The hay was damp, the horses restless, the cold biting through my coat. I sat on a tack trunk, staring at the rafters. The silence pressed against me like stone. I thought about how simple it would be to disappear completely, to let them have everything they wanted, a perfect family unblemished by me. But then my phone buzzed, a notification from an account I didn't recognize. The same shadowy presence that had warned me once before. A message blinked on the screen. "Check the USB, the locked file. Use this key." Attached was a string of numbers and letters. My heart stuttered. I rushed back inside, pulled the USB from the cedar chest, and entered the code. The folder unfolded like a wound opening. The first file was a video, shaky and grainy. My grandmother, frail in her last days, sat in her chair, her voice thin but steady. "I know what's been happening," she said, looking directly into the camera. "I've seen the way your mother favors Kyle, the way Clara is pushed aside. It has to stop. Fairness is love with a backbone." She coughed, then leaned closer. "If Clara is watching this, know I saw you. I saw it all." Tears burned my eyes, but I couldn't look away. The second file hit harder. A hidden recording, time-stamped months before Grandma's death. Kyle at the dining table, a pen in his hand, muttering curses under his breath as he scribbled. He held up a page, the deed to the house, and signed Grandma's name in jagged strokes. My mother's voice whispered off camera, urging him to hurry. I dropped the laptop, my body shaking. Proof. Proof of everything I had suspected and more. They hadn't just erased me from their lives. They had stolen from me, from her, from the truth itself. I pressed my hands to my mouth, but a sob escaped anyway. I had wanted vindication for so long, but standing in its light felt unbearable. My family wasn't just toxic, they were criminals. Another ping, the same anonymous account again. Now you know. If you want justice, work with me. But understand this. I'm not family. I stared at the message until my vision blurred. Not family. The words throbbed in my chest. Someone out there knew. Someone who had evidence. Someone who wasn't blood but was willing to help. And yet, all I could think was, why? The phone buzzed again, more insistent this time, repeating the message like a pulse. If you want justice, work with me. I looked out the barn window, the night black and endless, and felt the earth shift beneath me. My family had broken me, but here was a stranger offering me a hand out of the rubble. And I realized, with a mix of dread and trembling hope, that my next step would decide everything. The videos from the USB played over and over in my head, each frame scorching new scars into me. My grandmother's trembling voice had confirmed what I had always felt but never dared believe. I had been cast as the scapegoat, the disposable shadow so that everyone else could shine brighter. Every cruel joke, every cropped photo, every holiday where my seat was mysteriously taken, it hadn't been chance. It had been architecture. For years, I had thought if I just worked harder, smiled wider, swallowed the barbs, and stayed silent, one day I might earn my place. But the evidence proved the truth. There had never been a place for me. My role was to carry their sins, to absorb their chaos, to disappear so they could look whole. Something inside me shifted. The tears that had soaked my face in the barn hardened into something sharper, something hotter. Rage. Not the reckless kind, but the righteous kind. If they thought I would stay silent, they didn't know me anymore. If they thought they could steal not only my inheritance, but my very existence, they were wrong. The anonymous account messaged again, this time with more than words. Attached was a PDF, stamped and signed. A contract. My pulse quickened as I scanned the pages. It detailed the sale of part of my grandmother's land, months before the family signing day. Or they had already siphoned pieces of the estate while blaming me for delays, weaving a narrative where I was the obstacle. I nearly dropped my phone. This wasn't just a smear campaign. This was orchestrated fraud. And then came the twist I hadn't anticipated. The account introduced himself. He wasn't some random whistleblower or curious bystander. He had once been a junior clerk at the law firm my mother used for years. He had watched the documents move across desks, watched the signatures slide into place, and eventually walked away when he realized what he was being asked to cover up. "Your mother bought silence before," he wrote, "but she can't buy mine now. I kept copies." The world tilted beneath me. Proof. Real proof. Not grainy screenshots or whispers, but signed contracts, complete with timestamps and paper trails. For the first time in years, I wasn't just holding pain. I was holding power. I paced my kitchen, the PDF glowing on my screen, my heart thundering with a new rhythm. I wasn't their scapegoat anymore. I was their reckoning. But power without a plan was a fire that could burn me as quickly as them. I needed allies, people who believed me, people who could help me wield this truth instead of letting it consume me. I called my aunt first, the one who had slipped me the emails. Her voice cracked when I told her what I had found. "I always knew something was wrong," she whispered. "I was too scared to say it. But Clara, if you fight, I'll stand beside you." Then I reached out to a lawyer, one my family hadn't touched, an independent voice with no strings to my mother. I sent her the files. She responded within hours. "This is serious. You're not alone in this anymore." Finally, almost without realizing what I was doing, I logged onto TikTok, not to watch them, but to seek out the strangers who had defended me in the comments. People who had written things like, "Why is she never in the videos?" and "This doesn't add up." I messaged a handful, carefully, quietly. To my shock, they answered. They had been collecting inconsistencies, noticing patterns. Some had screenshots, others had clipped moments where my family's mask slipped. I wasn't crazy. They had seen it too. Piece by piece, the puzzle formed. Not the one my family had built, but the one they had tried to bury. The plan came together in a rush of adrenaline. Thanksgiving. They would be live streaming as usual, painting their glossy tableau of perfection for the world. That would be the moment to break the spell. Not with shouting or vengeance, but with truth. I would release the contracts, the videos, the behind-the-scenes footage where Mom shoved me out of frame, where Kyle rehearsed lines like an actor. Let the world see both shows at once, the polished performance and the rot beneath. But as I prepared the files, something in the contract stopped me cold. A single clause buried deep in the fine print. Ownership rights to the Hayes family brand, the social media empire built on my erasure, were divided equally among all direct heirs of Ruth Hayes. All, including me. My breath caught. For years I had been erased, silenced, cropped out. Yet legally I wasn't just part of the picture. I was part owner of the very machine they had built to destroy me. It was more than inheritance. It was leverage. The phone buzzed again with a message from the anonymous whistleblower. "Thanksgiving is your battlefield. Are you ready to burn the script?" I stared at the screen, my reflection staring back in the black glass, no longer a shadow in someone else's frame. For the first time, I wasn't wondering if I mattered. I was wondering just how much my presence could unravel everything they thought they had secured. Thanksgiving arrived, and with it, the performance my family had rehearsed all year. At noon sharp, the live stream began, the dining room glowing under golden light, the turkey carved with ceremonial precision, Mom's pearls gleaming like a crown. Kyle leaned back in his chair, his smile so broad it might have been stapled in place. Their audience swelled instantly, tens of thousands watching the Hayes family demonstrate unity. But I had my own broadcast prepared. On a split screen, I uploaded my first video. Raw, unfiltered footage of the truth. The camera showed Mom shoving me away from the table, her jaw tight as she hissed, "Not you, Clara," out of frame. Then it cut to Kyle in his bedroom mirror, practicing lines for the camera. "Family is everything. Tradition is sacred." Over and over until his delivery was flawless. Within minutes, the comments shifted. Viewers ping-ponged between their glossy livestream and my behind-the-scenes revelations. "Wait, is this real? She's been pushed out this whole time? That explains everything." The numbers ticked upward on my side, climbing faster than theirs. Then the first major brand released a statement. "Partnership terminated. We value authenticity," it read. Others followed like dominoes. Their contracts collapsed in real time, while their smiles froze on camera. I watched Kyle glance at his phone mid-livestream, his face faltering, the mask slipping. For the first time in years, I wasn't the invisible one. I was the voice cutting through the script. But then, the blowback. Kyle, quick as ever, retaliated with a clip of his own. He uploaded shaky footage of me months earlier, screaming in the kitchen, my face contorted with rage as I shouted at him. "Look at her," he sneered in the caption. "This is the real Clara, bitter, unstable, violent." The tide lurched, comments turned sharp again. "Maybe she's exaggerating. She looks crazy here." My chest tightened, the old panic returning. For a moment I thought he'd won, that the narrative had spun back into his control. But I wasn't the same Clara anymore. I didn't fight back with denial or excuses. Instead, I released the final weapon, the unlocked files from the USB. The first clip showed Kyle forging our grandmother's signature on the deed. His hand shook, his lips muttering curses as Mom whispered encouragement. The second clip was my grandmother herself, her voice frail but resolute. "Fairness is love with a backbone. Don't let them erase you, Clara." The internet erupted. The evidence was undeniable, stamped with dates, faces, voices. This wasn't a daughter lashing out. It was a record of fraud, manipulation, and betrayal. News outlets picked it up within hours. Headlines flashed across my phone. Hayes family exposed. Fraud allegations surface in viral livestream. The polished image my family had spent years curating cracked like porcelain under a hammer. And then, the final twist. The anonymous whistleblower revealed himself. He appeared in a recorded statement, face visible, documents in hand. "I worked at the firm that handled the Hayes estate," he said. "What Clara has shown you is true. These contracts are authentic. I witnessed the manipulation firsthand." His testimony sealed the coffin. Mom tried calling me live, tears streaking her makeup, pleading into the camera that I was confused, that I had been misled. Kyle grew red-faced, shouting about loyalty and betrayal, but the sound of their rage was drowned out by the weight of evidence. The mask wasn't just slipping anymore. It was gone. I sat at my desk, phone buzzing with notifications, watching the empire of lies crumble in real time. For once, I didn't feel small. I felt steady. Not victorious, not gloating, but solid, like I had finally stepped fully into the frame. Then my phone vibrated again, this time with a different message. A private call. The name glowing on the screen made my throat tighten. Mom. I hesitated before answering. Her voice was low, stripped of performance. "Clara, meet me. Just us. No cameras, no lawyers, no audience." The silence between us stretched, heavy as lead, and I realized this wasn't the end. It was only another beginning. The aftermath unfolded like a slow storm, steady and unstoppable. Court summons arrived within weeks, delivered by men in pressed suits who didn't care about family facades. The contracts, the forged signatures, the fraudulent transfers. All of it was evidence now, not rumor. The estate that had been carved away behind closed doors was dragged into daylight, examined, divided lawfully. For the first time, I was not erased from the paperwork. My name appeared in black and white, undeniable. Brands distanced themselves overnight. Every endorsement, every campaign collapsed in the wake of scandal. The Hayes family name, once polished to a blinding shine, now glimmered with tarnish under headlines. The perfect family that wasn't. Behind the smile, lies and fraud in America's favorite household. The empire my mother and brother had built on exclusion and control turned to dust in front of millions of eyes. Relatives who had laughed at my expense began calling, not with excuses, but with apologies. An uncle admitted he had always suspected the favoritism, but was too cowardly to speak. A cousin confessed she had stayed in the group chat, but muted it long ago, unable to stomach the cruelty. One by one, they acknowledged me, not as a ghost or scapegoat, but as blood. And yet, the person I most wanted to hear remorse from remained unmoved. My mother sat across from me in the lawyer's office, her hair perfectly set, her expression a sculpture of denial. "This is all a misunderstanding," she insisted, her voice smooth as marble. "We only wanted to protect the family legacy." I looked her in the eye and saw it clearly. Even stripped of power, she clung to the lie. She wasn't apologizing. She was rewriting the script again, hoping someone, anyone, would believe her. But this time, no one did. The lawyer cleared his throat. "The documents stand. The court will enforce the division." Her mask flickered then, just for a second. A flash of rage, of panic, of recognition that the story had slipped forever beyond her control. I walked out of that office with the weight of generations shifting off my shoulders. But freedom was not the absence of chains. It was the responsibility of deciding what to do with my hands now that they were unbound. The settlement gave me more than money. It gave me choice, and I knew immediately what I wanted to do with it. I established the Ruth Hayes Foundation, named after the grandmother who had seen me, truly seen me, when no one else did. The funds I inherited became scholarships for children from fractured families, kids who had been silenced, scapegoated, overlooked. Each grant was a piece of healing stitched into the world, proof that pain could transform into purpose. The first award ceremony took place in the barn where I had once sat in despair. String lights hung from the rafters, laughter filled the air, and instead of cameras demanding perfection, there were faces glowing with gratitude. My family wasn't there, but my chosen family was. Friends, allies, even the whistleblower who had risked everything to tell the truth. For the first time, I looked around and thought, this is what family should feel like. Still, the question lingered. Should I cut contact forever or leave a crack in the door? Late at night, I weighed it. My mother's voice echoed in memory, manipulative and honeyed. Kyle's threat still burned in my phone, archived but not forgotten. Part of me wanted to slam the door shut forever, to guard my peace like a fortress. Another part whispered of forgiveness, not for their sake, but for mine. I stood at that threshold, trembling between closure and continuation, knowing the choice would shape me as much as any court ruling. And in the end, I chose neither absolute nor surrender. I chose boundaries, low contact, measured, armored with truth. No more scapegoat, no more ghost. If they wanted access, it would be on my terms, not theirs. The story's climax had been rage and revelation, but its resolution was quieter. A sunrise over the ranch, the wind through the cottonwoods, the knowledge that I had survived the fire and stepped out whole. I wrote the final entry on the blog that had chronicled my journey. My fingers hovered before typing the words that had lived inside me since the barn, since the USB, since the first time I saw myself erased from a photo. Sometimes justice does not arrive in a courtroom. Sometimes it comes in the light that reveals what darkness worked so hard to hide. I hit publish. The page refreshed, and for the first time in my life, I felt seen, not by those who had cropped me out, but by those who now looked directly at me and understood.